Quick story. So there's a man named Venerable Jan Tyranowski, and I learned about him a few years ago, and I love his story. So he was somewhat sickly. He only had an 8th grade education, and he lived in Poland at the time of the Nazi occupation. And so he had a lukewarm Catholicism, went to Sunday Mass. That was about the story. And he was a bookkeeper. He became a tailor because he didn't care for that. But one day when he was at Sunday Mass, the priest said that all of us can become saints. Now, to us, we've heard that. But back then, most people had the idea that priests and nuns, super pious people were the only ones that ever became saints. And Jan was so struck by that, he went home and he decided he was going to become a saint. He was going to work toward that. He had took a vow of chastity, and he then began to read the works of St. John of the Cross and St. Teresa of Avila and learned all about the interior life. And one day his priest noticed, and he called to Jan and he said, I want you to be the youth leader. And it was because all of the priests from that parish had been sent off to Dachau, save this one priest. He was worried about the future of the youth in the parish. And so Jan prayed about it and finally accepted it. And he didn't know how to teach. So instead, he taught them how to pray. He taught them how to have a relationship with Christ. And it turned out that one of those young men, Karol Wojtyla, became Pope John Paul II. And it was Jan Tyranowski who nurtured his relationship with Christ, who also introduced him to St. Louis Marie de Montfort. And that was when JP2 realized it was okay to have a devotion to Our Lady. And of course, his devotion grew by leaps and bounds after that. There were also, in this group, there were 5 men who became priests, and there were 6 who entered other religious orders. So the work that he did simply by incredible. And so the story, it just struck me that we just never know the influence that we'll have, because who would have thought this unassuming, sickly man would have brought us one of the greatest popes ever. So until next time, God bless.